What is up, beautiful people? First off, thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to No Longer Stranded. Let's go ahead and get started on our new episode, Prenatal Depression. First, I want to thank you guys not just for the support, but for being here and listening, and I hope the things that are said help everyone have a better understanding on each depression, and I hope it gives you guys a push, a motivation to get back up on your feet. Just because you feel stranded now, it's not a forever thing. Also, next week will be the last episode of Season 1, explaining each depression. We will start a new series which will be based on my stories and what I did to lift myself up and turn myself around. So with that being said, welcome to No Longer Stranded. Last episode was based off a good friend of mine giving us a little personal insight on her manic depression. And honestly, bless her for achieving her life goals and turning things around for herself. It's within you guys to do the same thing. It's always been there. You just got to find it in yourself. Push through those negative thoughts and start making room for those positive ones to get you guys back on your feet and moving forward. You don't have to change overnight, and you won't change overnight. But taking that one step is better and bigger, and you're going to do amazing each step of the way, which is like a baby taking his or her first steps. But you got to crawl before you walk. Speaking about babies, prenatal depression occurs during pregnancy or 4 weeks after the child is born, which will then be called postpartum depression. Because of hormonal changes, it can cause triggers to the brain and leads to mood swings, and the symptoms are just as severe as depression, major depression. But it also includes sadness, anxiety, anger, exhaustion, worry about the baby's health and safety, harming yourself or even the baby. Now, I've personally never had kids, but I'm sure there's a lot of mothers out there who can relate to this. Between 12 to 23% of women go through depression during their pregnancy, while 5 to 25% of women go through postpartum depression. But just like all the other disorders, they don't talk about it, especially because people hear pregnancy and it's supposed to be this most amazing, beautiful, exciting thing of your life. I mean, you're carrying a human inside your body. It's a blessing. It's all fun. The planning of the baby showers, the gender reveal parties, the cravings, the first kick, and so much more. But the way the world views pregnancy is like a movie. Maybe it's different for the expecting mother, and it's not all women, but majority of them enjoy the pregnancy. And of course, I'm sure it gets tiring and crazy. But then there's some women who experience a smooth ride before the baby pops. But some other, it goes downhill. And continuing their day-to-day basis while carrying a baby can be discomforting and challenging, not to mention having people tell you so many different things, such as make sure you stay in shape, do this to make the baby healthier, or be happy you're having a baby, make sure you breastfeed, as if they have this masters on kids when half the people who are telling you this probably don't even have kids. And then you're throwing depression on top of that, which complicates everything more for you and even more so for the baby. Then there's postpartum depression, causing anxiety during labor and weeks at a time after the baby is born, leading the new mother into a deeper depression. Now, having anxiety alone is not fun, especially when you're up all night with so many thoughts driving you insane, and you just can't pause it, or you try to calm yourself down, but it's like you have this need, this certain itch to fix that problem at that very second. And if you don't, the world comes crumbling down. Now factor in being pregnant and already having these stressful, exhausting thoughts. Thoughts such as, how I'm going to make it financially? Was this even the right move for me to do? Am I going to be a great parent? How is this baby going to affect my everyday lifestyle now? So, you're up all night filled with worry and thoughts about things that you literally have no control over at the moment. And after all those nights awake, losing sleep, stressing out, wondering, it's finally time for the baby to arrive. And now that rush and excitement of holding your child for the first time, or maybe your third, is now replaced with the baby blues, which is also fairly common. It usually starts off a couple days before labor, which causes the mom to go through mood swings, sadness, and crying, not knowing why they're crying or why they're even sad. And this lasts a few weeks after the baby is born, but this kind of depression resolves on its own. But not every mom experiences a quick recovery. For some, it prolongs and becomes more severe, where it's now considered the postpartum depression. And this is beyond the control of women. But things such as having to go through postpartum due to a prior pregnancy, living in a stressful environment like relationships, your friendships, work, or family problems, problems with finances, or giving birth to a child with special health needs, the baby not being planned or even wanted, or suffering from a mental disorder prior to your pregnancy, like mood disorders, bipolar disorders, or depression, and all these things can increase the risk of postpartum depression. Whether it's your first child or the third, overall, having kids can be overwhelming. Between the sleepless nights, the diaper changing, the feedings, with all of this going on, it can be very easy to dismiss or not even notice that you have depression. So for the partners out there or the family members who are around helping the new mother, here are some pointers to look for. Crying all the time or more often than usual, lashing out for the littlest things, seeming sad and hopeless, lack of interest in things that were once enjoyable, intense lack of energy, feeling like a bad mother. It's important to look out for those things and these kinds of actions and try to get the help as soon as possible. Dealing with this kind of depression, especially during the pregnancy, can cause harm to the baby, like premature birth, low body weight, possible development problems. And the sucky thing is, sometimes it doesn't even happen right away. It could take up to a year for the mom to experience this kind of depression. And this isn't completely in their control. It just happens. But what they do have control over is recognizing the difference in themselves, seeing the changes of happy thoughts turning into now dark thoughts. Now, I was able to get in touch with a friend of mine that has experienced both depression during her pregnancy and after the pregnancy. I asked her what kind of thoughts went through her mind when she was pregnant, and she expressed how she was stressed, wondering if she was even ready for a kid, questioning herself if she would even make a great parent. Her anxiety she was experiencing during her pregnancy became worse than anxiety prior to being pregnant. With all that worry, all she could think of was if she's going to have a miscarriage. And several times paramedics had to be called due to this overthinking anxiety. It came to the point where she didn't feel the baby moving anymore. So she was rushed to the hospital, and the result of the baby being in this weird position of like hiding himself. And her anxiety got worse because of that. To the point where she'd literally start counting how many times a day he'd move or kick. And if he moved less days than the day before. So all that worry she already had kept adding up instead of easing down for her. After giving birth, she hit postpartum. I then asked her, how was she towards the new baby? And she responded how she became distant. She didn't care to be a mom with her depression, kicking in more, putting herself down, and believing the negative thoughts that people put in her head, such as, you're not going to be a good mom, or you wouldn't be capable of handling these things. So I wondered if she noticed herself getting into that deep state of mind, or was it brought to her attention? But as she said, it was a little bit of both. She knew she was getting depressed, but she didn't really acknowledge it because she suffered from depression prior to the pregnancy. So she didn't really put too much thought into it. She noticed, and she noticed that people would tell her that she didn't care or had the energy to take care of the baby. And people started pointing things out like about her actions and the way she became, and how she had such careless attitude, and how she wasn't interested in her paintings anymore, her photography, her yoga. She just completely stopped doing all the things that mattered to her, that once made her happy and fulfilled her. And she just decided, like, I need to seek help. I need to seek help, and I need to find somebody who's gonna put me back on track. Then I asked what actions did she take to get out of this funk. She did end up going to therapy frequently and was prescribed medication to help balance her out, which then helped her out a lot, made her open her eyes to the way she was being towards her newborn. But seeking that help made her become better, not just for herself, but for her son. Made her more drawn to him, more coddling, making her more attentive, being the mom that she knew she could be. So I was curious to how that made her feel, seeing how she became with her newborn versus how she was before seeking that help. And her realizing what she put both of them through made her sad, disappointed in her, but she's happy that she sought the help that she needed. Now, she is still on medication to help her keep balance, but it doesn't mean that the depression just disappears. It doesn't just go away. She still suffers from the depression, but she uses her down days to keep pushing, to work harder and fix it and make sure she balances herself and her attention to him. Her son is now 4, so what she does to balance herself is regroup. She tries to make sure that he's occupied with something like a game or a TV show so she can have a few moments to herself to just breathe and pull herself together. Which is amazing because when you're on that path of fixing yourself and you have that one day you wake up where you feel like you're being sucked back into that deep end, and that one day will turn to weeks, it's good to remember you're not alone and it's okay to not be okay. So if you have that one day, do what you have to do to feel that feeling. Cry it out for hours if you have to. Nap a little bit. But do not live in that feeling. Feel it. Feel it for hours. Feel it for days, like I said. But make sure that tomorrow or hours later, you conquer that feeling and you walk away from it. So for any moms out there who feel like, wow, this kind of relates to me, she recommends to get that help you need, especially with the baby involved. There are people willing to help. There are people who are out here for you emotionally to support you. So seek the help and understand that you are not alone. You're not alone. And I second that. At the end of the day, there are so many different kinds of depressions, but they all have similarities, and feeling like you're completely alone is one of them. So it's extremely important for you to know and hear me when I say this. You're not alone. You're not alone. And there's multiple resources to help you. Self-help books, audiobooks. So keep pushing, keep trying every single day. Every day you wake up seeking any kind of help or any kind of productive thing to do for the day is one step ahead already. But I want to go ahead and end this short podcast. And I want to thank you guys for listening and tuning in. If you have any questions, you can reach me at strengtheningwithsteph@gmail.com, or you can go ahead and follow my Instagram, strengtheningwithsteph, or my second Instagram, no longer stranded. If you ever need anyone to talk to have some suggestions, topics you want to talk about, go ahead and hit me up. Thank you guys. Have a blessed day.